Great. So next up, we have Evert and Brian, and they're going to speak to us about the Dutch approach to solving lab exchange issues. And Evert is co-chair of IHE, the Netherlands, and Brian is a senior information architect. So they have a wealth of experience between the two of them, so a warm welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share some experience from the Netherlands about solving problems. And in this case, I hope, yeah. First, I have to explain a little bit. Originally, I was not the one who presented here. That was my vendor co-chair, TTA. And Brian, he will end the presentation and do the middle of the presentation, and I will do the introduction. I'm a user co-chair. I'm a radiologist in normal life, but a lot of time goes to IHE, of course. Normally, you start with the user. A normal IHE profile starts with a description of a small problem, but we just changed that a little bit in the Netherlands. We try to look at guidelines, and a guideline is a different starting point as far as we think. We used the guideline as a starting point and discussed what you should use from IT perspective to solve in IT terms the guideline problem. Normally, guideline in radiology I have to do with 200 guidelines, thick booklets. Nobody reads it, and nobody. Well, you try to find somewhere a summary and you use the summary. That's all. But then you don't have the IT part. So we try to translate guidelines to IT. That was the starting point of this working group in IHE Netherlands. And that had some nice effects I will explain in the next slide. We explained the working of IHE profiles, and sometimes IHE is not sufficient, and then we used other IT tools. So it's a working group that not only used IHE profiles. So it's a little bit different approach than we are used to. In fact, we used the IHE process to get a solution. And the IHE process, that is a structured approach, that's an ISO certificated method. It's vendor neutral, and the participators of the working group found it was very pragmatic. We had some side effects. We got much more interest from the user side. They now they saw what the influence was on their problem from what IHE profiles gave them back to solve a problem. But it also we got also interest from the Ministry of Health and also from insurance companies. The first one we have made is the guideline about tumor board review. It was specific for breast carcinoma, but you can also use the approach for other multidisciplinary boards. And there are a lot of in my hospital. There's a lot of discussion about how to solve a problem, and each patient is different, and each time it's a different working process. And the next time, the next guideline is, I hope it's now on the website, but I can imagine it will take a week. It's about laboratory data. And now I gave the floor to Brian. He Originally, he was working in his hospital and in my hospital.
Hello, I'm Brian Sanderse from the Netherlands. I work in an Star SAL. It is a diagnostic center. So it is healthcare, but more for the family doctors, not for hospitals. So first, talk about interoperability. How I explain it, it's like you have a work process, and the IT environment must fit perfect. So you have the happy flow, but also the exceptions, and that's very important. If I look in the Netherlands, we have of course work groups also for HL7, especially for labs, and they do good work, but it's more engineers, so they do only the happy flow, and of course from a technical point of view. So the exceptions, they are missing. IT does use those exceptions in the standards and also in the messages, of course. So it's very, very good to use. And if we do it, we don't have the knowledge about it. We are missing a little bit. So these are the guys, and I'm not on the picture because I was on a reconstruction of my house then. It's already finished. So. And of course, there are more people who make the IHE lab use guide. Of course, there are people from the companies. We have also some companies on our group, and they want to use HL7 Fire. But if you look in IHE, especially for the lab domain, they use HL7 version 2 and version 3. We don't have there any fire on this moment. So we say, okay, we make it on the, everything is based on the profiles who are in the domain of the laboratory. It's HL7 version 2. That's our starting point. That works, that's stable. And maybe in next year, we need to maintain the guideline. Next year, maybe there is HL7 Fire, and then we translate it to HL7 Fire. But for now, it's not mature enough. Yeah, this is a point, it's my experience. I'm a believer of IHE. So I see it as my religion. And it isn't a religion, hey? You see it there. In the hospital where we work with Evert in Breda, we talk a lot about IHE, too much. So the people, I don't know, we didn't get it off the ground, the integration profiles. It was too much IHE. And what we do now, especially where I now work, I use IHE in my architectural principles. It's IHE, and also in the requirements. But internally, I use IHE, so I translate the use cases. I look at of course, the transaction. I translate it to Dutch, and then I discuss it with my users and of course the vendors, and they say, "Whoa, that's good," but I never mentioned IHE. And then later, then I say, okay, what we make, it's IHE. But this is now another approach, and the vendors and users are thinking with us. It's very good. So, but it looks like, because we talk a lot about it, we are some kind of missionaries, and it was too much. Yeah. Another experience on my side. Okay, we have the connectathon. I am also a monitor connectathons from IHE, but they are technical people. So that's very good. We can talk very good with those people. They are very doing the best. If something is wrong, they fix it in the night normally, and then in the morning it works. When I go at my working place or the hospital, and I say, I want for the vendor, I want IHE and I want like XDS in the PAC system, then they say, we don't have that. And then I go to the website, their website, I take the integration profile and say, here, you have it. So the problem is, the big, and especially the big companies, a few people know, but the salespeople where we talk with, they don't know nothing about IT. They don't know what they have. So that is, for me, a bit of a problem, and of the knowledge inside the companies. So maybe that will help if that is more published, or that we say you need those people in your own company, they tell you. Another thing is, we have, of course, a lot of companies and also small companies, but it's difficult to ask them to do, how do you call that? To make some like an XDS connector. XDS is very known here. So you need to have the connector. It's too expensive for the company to make it themselves. So it should be nice if you have some like open source, they can use it and they can implement it in their equipment or software, so they can connect on an IHE base, like in the early days on DICOM for modalities and also PAC systems. You have their open source connectors. It is DICOM for C or Office, and a lot of people use it and it works. So in a few hours we test a modality with all the DICOM services. It's very powerful, but I don't know if there is something about XDS or other profiles that companies can use. We have a few gaps in our user guidelines. One is those material, human material, biomedical material samples of human. They have a barcode, and it is a barcode of the company. So we have, in my company, at SARS-L, our barcode, and we have a lot of other labs of, and they use also their own barcode. So the problem is, if we want to exchange those tubes, or like a lab to lab, then we give, of course, the order, and we give also some tubes, and then they relabel the tubes. So they take another label on the tubes. And of course, sometimes it goes wrong and you have a mix-up of those labels. That is a gap we have, and there is now an international work group from which, together with IHE-1, to solve this problem, so that there is one new barcode and it is unique in every sample. It's like in DICOM you have images, they are also unique in the world. And we want to have that also. So that is a gap, and it is solving, and I think if we are solving it, then it can be like an IHE integration profile. Thank you.